like I have no answers. And I'm like, I don't want to go meet with her at 7 o'clock at night. I'm not doing that.
No, and you know what? I celebrate the fact that you know what you need and also what doesn't work for you because I I had a conversation with somebody recently, not too long ago, and it was about, do you work at night for to accommodate those clients who are working during the day and can only meet with you at night? And I know there's a lot of people who do that. And I remember saying to my husband, I'm like, my gut is telling me that I don't want to do that. And I was
Yeah.
feeling a lot of guilt around that. And I'm just at the point in my life where that's not what I want to do. Like I want to set my schedule on my terms.
Yep.
Like of course reasonable working hours every single day.
Right.
But if I choose to work on the weekend, it's because I make that choice, not because it's being demanded of me
Yes.
or because I have to work at night. Now,
Yes.
if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I think that we could be a fit to work together. I need to talk to you. I need to have a conversation with you sooner rather than later. Um, Going forward, we could meet during the day, but for the next 2 weeks, I'm so jammed up during the day with business meetings. Would you be open to meeting at night? And, maybe we
Right.
have a 7 o'clock Zoom. I'm willing to do that, provided that if I bring this individual on as a client, that our meetings would take place during the workday. Um,
Right.
it's so interesting what you're saying because I think it was just yesterday. I was remembering a situation that I was in a few years ago. I want to say maybe it's more like 5 years ago. And I had been involved in a number of different things, different endeavors, and things that I volunteered for. Some of them I didn't. And there were a lot of responsibilities on my plate, like everybody else. Now, these were things that were not daily occurrences. Um, Similar to you, um, some of them only happened a couple times a year. There was another one that was weekly. There was another one that could have been at any time. Like I could have maybe one, like it could come like any day and maybe like
Right.
multiple times. Or I could have a couple months where there was nothing. And
Yeah.
I just felt like I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And and then I felt guilty because I'm like, it's not like I'm doing these things on the regular. And
Yeah.
somebody said to me, it's because you are energetically attached to these
Hmm.
things. And it's like just knowing that is
Yeah. That
weighing you
it's
down.
there and it could pop up at any moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel that way about the evening meetings because it's kind of like, well, I can't turn off because I have to remember I have to go back into this in a couple of hours.
Exactly.
And and time blocking gets weird too because it's like, well, okay, I'll finish what I'm doing and now I've got 30 minutes until this meeting starts, so like I can't start a TV show. Like what am I going to do with 30 minutes now? I've lost 30 minutes out of my evening that I
Hmm.
could have done something else with if I had an hour.
Exactly.
And so now it's just lost. And then there's also the time for the meeting. And now that's not to say that I won't ever work in the evenings, and I do, and I work weekends too, but I work it when I choose to, and I'm not going to have somebody else telling me I have to. And there's a big difference,
Huge difference.
and for years with this client, I have worked all kinds of weird hours. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been uncommon. Like I couldn't sleep, so I'm up at 1 o'clock in the morning, so I'm working.
Hmm.
And I don't mind that I'm working at 1 o'clock in the morning because I chose to do so. But you're not going to schedule a meeting with me at 1 o'clock in the morning. In fact, I turned one of those down this week because they have a client in Australia who keeps trying to book meetings with me. And I'm like, no, I'm
Hmm.
not going to meet you at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's very different when you choose to do it and it's a one-off thing as opposed to I'm going to commit to doing this over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels a bit like in your home and your belongings, your possessions. And obviously you have to take care of your home. You've got to dust and you've got to mop and do all the things to keep the environment lovely to live in, but and also healthy. But then when it comes time to dust, if you have a lot of stuff to dust, that makes the process longer, right?
Yep.
And if you're dusting things that you don't really have a vested interest in or an energetic attachment to, suddenly the notion of putting these belongings into a box and donating them to somebody who would really fully appreciate them becomes so
Yeah.
much more exciting. And you go, then I have less to dust and it takes me less time. And then I can
Yeah.
get back to doing the things I want to do. And that's where my husband and I are at this point in our lives. It's like, are we really going to use that? Does that really hold value for us? And if not,
Nice.
we give it
You're Mary
wings.
Kondoing everything.
Oh, I bow down to you, Marie. I mean, yes. And and then the things that we do have that we value so much, how do we organize them to make excellent use of the space?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really I commend you for looking at all this, but I also commend you for not turning away from your anger, because I learned this from a very sage and dear friend of mine. She said a number of years ago to me, she said, anger is our teacher. And I remember I went, what? And she said, yeah, she said, anger is really our good friend, but we turn away from it because we don't like being angry. I think
Yeah.
unless you're like some of the Real Housewives and they thrive in that emotional state.
Right.
But generally speaking, we don't like being angry. And so we avoid anger. But anger is a valuable teacher because it really shows us, like, hey, that person or situation crossed a boundary. And it
Yeah.
also teaches us what our boundaries are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's very much been my takeaways. Every time I'm ending my day and I'm angry, I'm like, okay, what am I really angry about? Because it might not be this last thing that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. It's deeper. And even with looking at that matrix, I'm like, okay, I updated the matrix, so I've got that really good visual of, all right, well, what has changed, and is it really too much, or is there something else that's driving this anger? Because I
mm,
have to get to the bottom of it, because you know I don't want to keep constantly going back, making demands or changes or whatever. Like that's certainly not going to be good for my income, let alone
mm,
for business or anything else. um and I don't want to be that person who just keeps making demands but is never satisfied. Like I have to get to the root of that, because I only want to
mm-hmm,
go and have that conversation once and put my foot down once and say, okay, this is what needs to happen to fix this situation.
mm-hmm.
But I have to know that that's the right answer. So yeah, it's been a lot of soul searching, because, and also like waiting it out to see, well, was I just moody that week? Like, does it go away? Now this has been going on for about a month and a half now, where it's frequent and it's increasing in frequency. I'm like, okay, this is really, I have to deal with it before I blow up and do something.
Mm.
And it's definitely not going away. It's not fixing itself. It's not a temporary thing that's going to resolve. So I have to get to the root of it, and I have to figure out what's going to be the right solution, and then go and ask for the right thing.
Do you ever watch? I love that. I love everything you just said. And something that popped into my head is, do you ever watch period pieces on television, or Netflix or something? Say
Mhm.
like I don't know, like Bridgerton, or one of
Oh,
those
I
type
love
of shows,
Bridgerton.
right? And they live in these houses and they're very long. I say houses like mansions. And it's like one room connects to another. And obviously today's homes aren't built that way, but like today's homes, you open the door and that's the room, right?
Right.
Those those homes, you open a door, there's a door on the other side. It leads
Hmm.
into another room. There's a door on the other side of this gigantic room.
Yeah.
And what you said is so true. It's like, is it one of my is that thing, whatever that thing is, what I'm really angry at, or is it something
Yeah.
else? So it's like
Is there
sometimes,
another room on the other
yes,
side?
sometimes
Yes.
it's just that room, and sometimes it's like, no, it's four rooms down. It's in the West Wing. Like, keep walking, keep
Yeah.
walking. And
Yeah.
do you do you do you journal, right? Do you do that?
I do a lot of writing, but I wouldn't say I journal.
Okay.
And not anything consistent.
Okay. Because what I was wondering was, would it be helpful for you to, when the feeling comes up where you're feeling angry and you say, okay, I'm angry. Okay. What am I aware of? I'm angry. Okay. Let's dig a little deeper. Why am I
Yeah.
angry? Do you ever like just jot notes down for yourself?
Yeah, and sometimes I will journal like that. Like while I don't journal regularly, there are occasions where, yeah, if I'm trying to dig through something emotional, then I will. And it works. It works really well because
Hmm.
um you don't think, you just spill. And then you go
Yes,
back and reread it and like, okay, well, what came out? And yeah,
exactly.
sometimes it's surprising. I haven't done it with this one. Instead, I've been walking through my my issues. But yeah, I do that sometimes, and even word association too. And I've done that, and I could do that while I'm walking. Where I'm like, okay, well, is it this thing here? Okay, well, no, that made me cry. They make me mad. So that's a problem, but it's not this problem.
Yeah, that's
I
something else.
had that one. I did. I had that one the other day. Because I was mad and I was walking and I'm like, okay, well, let's do word association. Let's see what that does. And I hit on one. My husband is working late hours these days. They've changed the algorithm for how they do his service routes. And so he's now back to 10-12 hour days. You know, if
Oh.
he's home before 7, I'm lucky. And so like, all right, well, is that making me mad? I'm like, no, that one made me cry. Okay, I'm sad about that, but that's not this. Although it does play a little bit of a part in that, I am much more protective of that late evening time now than I was before. When he was
Exactly.
getting home at 4 or 5 o'clock, then, if I worked until 6 or if I did a meeting at 8, it didn't really matter because I still had a nice chunk of time to spend with him and my kids, and that was fine. But, if he's not walking in the door until 7, I don't want to be doing a meeting at 7 or 8 o'clock at night when, I only have 2.5 hours with him and with my kids and all of us together. Like, I'm not going to give up that time. It's way too limited. Um,
Exactly.
so, there's an element of that, especially because this one client in Australia keeps demanding these evening meetings, even if it's not 1 a.m., 7-8 o'clock. That I don't feel, it's one of those where, why should you have a meeting if it could be an email?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's that aspect. And then, having to try and work with this person who's working night shift. And again, like, I need to meet with them. I need to talk to them, but they don't even start till 7 p.m. So the only time I could talk to them is in that kind of golden time slot. And I'm like, no, this is not okay. I'm not doing this.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm kind of coming down to there's a handful of different issues, which also means that there's a handful of possible solutions. But I got to make sure that I've gotten to the root of all of them. And then
Hmm.
I figured out, well, what do I think is going to be the best solution to it? Because I'm not one of those people who just complains. Like,
No,
if there's a
no.
problem, I want to come at this problem and this discussion, not only with expressing how I feel and why, but also offering solutions of, well, I think this is going to fix it. Because that drives me nuts. Like, people who just want to complain about something and not offer any solutions to it. I'm like, well, I don't know how to fix your problems. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
offer some solutions. An emotional problem anyway. Your workflow, yeah, that's different. But when it's an emotional thing, like, yeah, you got to come to the table with some suggestions, even if that's not ultimately the compromise and the answer. Like, you come empty handed. Like, why are we having this conversation? You got to do a little work first.
I agree. I agree. Well, tell me how are you doing otherwise?
Otherwise, I'm doing okay. My business is doing really well.
Great.
I'm getting all my ducks in a row, and I apologize. I'm changing rooms because I need my power cord. So
Oh,
bear with
that's
me here.
okay. I see you posting on
um,
social media all the time. It's great.
yeah. Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate the interactions. It helps.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm loving that. I'm loving the new personal brand. And I'm getting all my ducks in a row. With the new consulting services, the price model, and I'm building out a team of people who I can outsource to and who can help if and when I get super busy. And I'm really expecting to hit the networking hard come September. So the goal is kind of by the end of the month, or at least by the end of the first week in September, that I've really got all the marketing material in place. I got the business cards. I got the website built out. I know what my services are. I know what I'm charging, like all of that stuff. I've got, I'm working on the email newsletter now, and getting that all worked out. and that way I can hit the networking really hard and everything else is all ready to go. And the well-oiled machine should just start churning, hopefully.
I got your newsletter. I'm excited. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'm excited to have it in my inbox.
Oh, good, good. So yeah, I made a first run on it, about 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't bad. And I had about 10 newsletters ready to go out. So now I'm kind of going back through and fine tuning to make sure it's really got the messaging that I want. And actually, I had a really great learning experience. I got an email from somebody else's mailing list, and I really liked it. Not just the content, but also how they said what they said. I'm like, I like, I want this in mine.
Mm.
I wanted the content. But I also, like I said, really liked the way they said it. I'm like, how can I put my own spin on this, but take this idea. And so I did my best to kind of mimic theirs in my own words. And boy, what an excellent exercise, because I felt like I really hit my voice, the voice that
Mm.
I wanted to hit, because a lot of times when I write, I tend to go to one extreme or the other. Either it's very, very dry and technical, because I spent a lot of my life doing a whole lot of technical writing,
Hmm.
or it's kind of Douglas Adams or Lewis Carroll-esque absurdism that I'm really good at too. And so it's very opposite extremes. And when you're trying to communicate with a base of followers slash potential clients, to hit somewhere in the middle where you're providing information that's valuable and wanted and appreciated, but doing so in a way that's a little bit entertaining and interesting to read. So I'm really trying to hit that sweet spot, and
Hmm.
by mimicking this other person's style, really helped for me to kind of nail that place that I've been trying so hard to get to. So it was really helpful. So I've been on a roll, kind of
Mm.
revisiting all the newsletter pieces that I had done before. I'm like, okay, tweak it a little here and a little there. So yeah, I'm really happy with where it's going. And so, hopefully I get positive feedback, but so far the feedback on just the social media feeds has been really positive, which is great,
That's
because
awesome.
that was terrifying. That was a risk.
Do you do you feel like you're settling into it? Your soul is
Yeah.
settling into it?
Yeah, I really
Good.
do. I feel like I'm settling into it, not only from, process perspective of getting my processes in place so that I can do these things repeatedly. But yeah, from a soul perspective, like, okay, this was really scary to do a personal brand and really put my personality into it in a place that was reaching the business world, as opposed to like an artistic community. And, I've gotten some positive feedback on it, which has been really helpful to just kind of validate, like, okay, like nobody's like going off the deep end saying, oh my God, what you do? So that helps. That helps me kind of get to that place of peace with myself of what I'm doing. And it's also been really interesting, because it's been about 2 months, about mid-June, when I decided this was the direction I was going and started putting effort into it. And in these 2 months, I have not put in any effort to purposefully network.
Mhm.
But yet I have done an awful lot of networking, and networking with some pretty high ranking, far reaching individuals within the industry.
Wow.
They just kind of stumble in my door. Like the
Mm.
one, I had this great meeting this week. I really liked the woman, really nice woman. But we ended up chatting a little bit in the comments on somebody else's post in a Facebook group, and decided to take the conversation offline, or well, online in a different place.
Mhm.
And so we scheduled a Zoom meeting together. And I didn't know who she was. She was just in an industry related Facebook group. And so probably about 10 minutes before the meeting, I was kind of looking her up on Facebook and LinkedIn, just so I knew a little bit more about who I was about to talk to and had a little bit of context. And it turned out that she works for one of the national underwriters, and actually runs the agency relations for an entire state. So, really powerful prime position to be a power referral partner.
Wow.
And I just stumbled into it, and we had a really great conversation. It was really nice to connect with her, and she offered to introduce me to a couple of other people who would also be really fantastic connections to make. So, and that's not the first time that I've had an experience like that in the last 2 months, where I'm just kind of stumbling across people and ending up with these really great networking meetings, and I'm not even trying. So I'm really kind of curious what'll happen when I try. And where that's going to go. And I'm scheduled to go to an industry conference in October. So I'm excited about that. It's out in California. It's the annual nationwide trade expo. So, that's going to be a fabulous networking opportunity. But I'm also hoping that some of these people that I'm connecting with online will be there. I'll get to meet them in person. I've found a couple already. But I'm sure there's going to be more. So yeah, fall's going to be busy.
Exciting. Because I know on Monday in my group, you had mentioned that you have a lot of meetings this week and then the follow-ups and all that. So it sounds like it's all going well for you.
Yeah, it really is. I'm really making good connections.
That's
So yeah,
amazing.
it's exciting. Now I just need some money rolling in. So that way I could just walk away from this client who's causing me so much heartache and focus on other things. But that's going to take some time.
Well, you know what? I'm a firm believer in, as you are, in just being so intentional in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
what is the vision and what steps do we need to take in accordance with that vision so that we're in full alignment with it. And I really believe that when we put that out into the universe, and then the things that, they just start showing up, like this woman showed up for you, and teachers show up for us, and
Mm-hmm.
moments of learning show up for us, and moments of reflection and questions. Like all of a sudden our subconscious is like, so I know you're peeling carrots, but I got a doozy for you. Buckle up, and then you
Yeah.
just start thinking about it, and then it can change the entire trajectory of what you're doing, or maybe it enhances it. And
Yeah.
and there's such magic in that, I
Oh
think.
yeah, there really is. And along those lines, I did something recently. I've been thinking about it for a little while, thinking I really should do it. And then this week I've been a bit more intentional about it. And I think it's definitely the way to go moving forward. Is, I'm very much a morning person. Like I wake up and my brain just turns on and I'm ready to go most days. And so my best work hours are first thing in the morning. And so, it used to be that I'd start my morning. The very first thing I do was start work for this one big client, because they are my primary source of income. So they always had the top priority. And I've switched that, and I've pushed back the time that I start doing work for them. But not by a lot, but by a little bit. Give myself about 2 hours in the morning that I'm focusing in on doing this writing and starting to do the newsletter and the social media. And I'm going to start doing some courses. And so to focus in on my goal for the future and for my business first,
Mm,
and then put the time into this client who pays my bills.
hmm.
And there's still plenty of hours in the day. Like they're not being neglected. They're getting what they need and deserve and pay for. But to do something else first, where that's the first focus of my day, and that's really where my priority is. And I think subconsciously it really does put that focus that, okay, this is my priority in life, and this is what I want to manifest within my reality. And so that's the thing that comes first. And, and I think that can be really powerful.
Hmm.
I also have to be really diligent that I set an alarm so I stop.
Because yeah, you get it, you get into it, and you're like, oh, it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
What are
yeah,
you thinking?
definitely. There's always that kind of a risk, but yeah, I think it's important that we're making the time for the things that are our priority. And I think, and that's true, in life and business, any way you slice that, how are you allocating your time, and are you giving your time to the things that are the most important?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, oh, I learned another good one recently. I've been full of learning recently.
What did you
Oh,
learn?
it kind of ties into this time management as prioritization. But I had COVID the first week in August. It's the first time I
Mm,
had COVID.
mm,
And it sucked.
hmm.
It wasn't, emergency room serious, but it also wasn't, asymptomatic, walking around, I'm fine kind of situation. I was definitely sick. And I went from being able to work 10, 12 hours a day to 6 to 8. um
Mm.
and that's always tough to kind of to just take that when life kind of smacks you and say, nope, you're not going to do all the things you want to do. Yeah, that's always hard. But I was really surprised by the end of that week to look back on the week, and I look back and I actually felt like I got something done.
Hmm.
In fact, I felt like I got a lot done, especially
Mm.
considering I was working half as many hours. Um, and it all came down to prioritization. And I was only doing the things that had to get done, the things that were the most important to get done. Um, so I still felt like I got things done by the end of the week, but it does kind of beg the question, well, what am I spending all the rest of my time on? Should I really be spending my time that way? Um,
Mm.
and the other thing that kind of hit me in that experience was, I'm sure you've heard the time management analogy of a jar full of pebbles and
Oh
boulders.
yeah. Oh yeah. Hmm.
And it's the idea of, well, when you're planning out your time, you put those biggest boulders in the jar first, and then you put the next size rocks, and then you fill in that little bit of time with the pebbles. And it's really a great way to conceptualize how to prioritize and manage your time. But you have to consider, how big is the boulder, and how many jars worth of time, if each jar is a day, how many jars that boulder should take up. And I have a tendency to put one or two, 2 or 3 boulders in a single day,
Yeah.
and then expect to get all these little things done in between.
I know. And it's like, can we in fact split the boulders up in the same way that um, a gemologist would split a diamond, you know?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, when I work with my clients, I say the same thing, and because they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get my PowerPoint presentation done. I'm going to get my social media done. I've got 2 meetings," and I'm like, "Hold it do, pump the brakes." And like, I love the enthusiasm. I love that you've got so much going on, but how many hours is it going to take you to do the PowerPoint? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't think about that. And how
right.
long are your meetings? Well, they're 2 hours, but they could run over because the one's chatty. Do you have follow up after those meetings? Yeah, I'm going to have to send some documents and blah, blah, blah. And like, so you could conceivably spend anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes crafting those emails, right? Like, yeah. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, okay. More than half of my morning or afternoon, whatever, is taken up just in the meetings and the follow up. And then
Yep.
all of a sudden they go, oh, now I have all this time left and I don't have all the time that I thought I did. And I'm like, are you going to take a lunch? Are you going to take a couple quick breaks? How long's your social media going to take? I mean, it's a lot. Like
Yeah.
I was creating something earlier today, and you know this, when mentally, when you are like this, and the words just tumble out of us. But if we're
Hmm.
tired or we're not as inspired as we normally are, like
Yeah.
it was my own social media post for today, and I'm like, what do I post? And it was like crickets. Even the crickets were like, yeah, we got nothing. I'm like, I could use some help here, peeps. And they're like, yeah, we got nothing. We're waiting on you. And I'm like, okay. And so it took like a good 25 minutes. And like once I settled on the idea, boom, I
Right.
had it done in 5 minutes. But um yeah, I so
Yeah.
get that.
Oh, that writer's block is always tough.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh God. But then when the doors open and everything happens and your fingers can barely keep up with the flow of
Mm-hmm.
ideas, right?
Yep.
And there have been, like you were saying, up at 1 o'clock, like I don't mind doing that if if I know that I'm in the middle, I'm in flow, I'm in
Yes.
alignment. And then I just keep thinking like don't break the spell. Just keep going, get it
Yep.
out. And
Yep.
and then in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to pay the piper in the morning.
Yeah, you're gonna pay
Oh,
for it later, but yeah, sometimes you gotta just ride that tide when you're in flow. And
yeah,
everything else be damned. If you've got to take a nap later or reschedule a meeting, sometimes you just got to run with that because that's magical moments.
it is. It is.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so yummy. And then you feel so victorious. And then you go back to it and then you sink right back into it all over again when you
Yeah.
dive back in. And it just feels right. And maybe you look at it with the fresh eyes and you go, hmm, I see here where I can further develop that and make that a little bit richer. And then here, maybe I can tweak that a little bit, or maybe I rearrange things. But yeah, I so get that.
Yeah. So have you ever thought about kind of keeping like a folder or list of possible social media ideas for those days where you're sitting there with crickets?
It's funny you say that. I do have one. And I went through the list and I wasn't.
You weren't feeling them?
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I looked at the graphics that I had created for my Thursday posts, and they just weren't speaking as loudly to me. Like the volume was turned down on them. And so,
Yeah, I have that too sometimes.
and then I remembered that, I don't always have to come out with content. Like it could just be a quick little question, and then that
Hmm.
spurs content, or that spurs responses.
Yes.
Oh, and I've been seeing you, and then Jen from Bloom and Hustle, and social media apps, scheduling tools,
Hmm.
and all that. And I'm like, why not? Let's just ask that question. Like, hey, do you use social media scheduling tools? Because even if somebody doesn't, they'll see that and go, ew, and then they'll
Right.
sink into that and go, you know what? I really need to bring that into my business. So who knows
Yeah,
what that will spur from them, even if they never comment.
absolutely. Yeah, sometimes the questions are the best ones. And one of the things I do, as I'm interacting in social media, is I'll keep an eye out for those sort of posts that I see other people make and see which ones are getting a lot of engagement for them.
Hmm.
And I actually have a list I maintain of like conversation starters.
Yes.
Um, and the ones that I've seen other people use that really seem to get engagement, and I add them to the list. So that way, if I'm in that moment and I'm stuck and I'm like, oh, what thing, I have that list to go back to as well. But it was funny because there was one I ended up commenting. I was the first one to comment on this one the other day. And they were asking, if you're struggling with your August, what's one thing you would do to make it better, or something like that.
Hmm.
And I was just in a really flippant mood that morning. And so my comment was skip to September. But oh my goodness, did I kick off a conversation with
Yeah.
people? So yeah, you never know what thing's going to hit people right on what day. Um, but yeah, I like to keep a list of ideas for that sort of thing too.
Hmm.
Um, or the other thing I found is like, yeah, if I just sit down with a blank piece of paper or a blank screen in front of me, the crickets, like, oh my God, my brain is empty. I know nothing. Um, but I know it's not true. There's lots of things in there. It's just accessing them. And I find that I tend to do really well in responsive situations. So because I know that about myself, I put myself in situations all the time that might trigger me to have things that information that I want to put out. So then that really helps me with keeping things going in my social media feed and things like that. So, it's Facebook groups where people are asking questions and I'll comment, or, it's following people's different social media. It's listening to podcasts.
Hmm.
I get it from a lot of different places. But certainly I've been known to write a comment out on a post on Facebook and then hit enter and be like, oh, that was really good. I'm going to copy that. And I'm
Yeah.
going to go use that as a post somewhere before I forget about it. So yeah, that's really not uncommon. You've probably seen me do that a couple of times, and like things I've commented on yours. Next thing you know, it's in my social media
I'm
feed.
like, oh, she's running with it. She's got the baton. I love
Yep.
it. Oh,
Yeah.
the graphic archiving, you're doing it wrong. When I saw that in your feed, I was like, yay.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually ended up doing a whole blog post. Like I hit that flow last night and I
Hmm.
was just writing, did a whole blog post. It was only supposed to be like a short newsletter thing. And like I went too far. So then this morning I had to go back and look at it. I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to take this really big thing that's too big for my newsletter and put that over here in the blog post column. And I'm going
Mm,
to edit it so that there's a smaller version. And I'll just link to the blog post, be like, well, if you really want to know more, there's more over here.
yeah.
But yeah, I hit that, but it was related to that post and, archiving, you're doing it wrong. There's paper
Mm. I,
everywhere.
I saw that. I laughed out loud. I thought, God, that is so funny. And because, I just think like wrapping up the week, we all need to laugh. And what are the funny
Mhm.
things that are like business related or admin related that we can all get a chuckle out of? I forget what I've got lined up for tomorrow because I schedule them. I still haven't dove into Metrocool yet, but I will. But I've been using the Facebook scheduler. And
Yeah.
God, I just love that. It's like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And
Yeah.
I feel like I've had to get some other things cleaned up before I dive into figuring out Metricool because I want to have a clean mind. I don't want to be
Hmm.
thinking like, oh, I've got these open loops, these open circles over here, these open tasks. I want to close those loops and then I can feel the relief, feel the spaciousness, and then I dive into something.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I feel
yeah.
you. Yeah, I got to be in the right mindset sometimes for something new.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And social media, like, yeah, it really does help to sit down and plan ahead a bit. And have that, whether you're live posting or you're going to schedule, but to have that plan in front of you of, this is the kind of content I want to offer. And in fact, on my list of things to do is actually to put together a plan for a whole year.
Mm,
Because I want to take a step back. I'm well, a lot of my content is good for any business owner. I'm targeting the title industry. And so I want to sit down and really think through, well, what is the life cycle of a title agency over the course of a year? And what kind of things should they be thinking about at what points in the year?
exactly.
When do they have time to think about these certain things that maybe would get the back burner when they're really busy, or what things when they're really busy are going to be the most important, and kind of create that annual idea of, okay, these are the sorts of topics I should be hitting at these times of year, so that they land when people are ready for them.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's sort of next on my social media planning, is to look at that bigger view,
Mm-hmm.
and then come down a little more granular and figure out, okay, well, if in this quarter they should be thinking about this, then how do I break that down? What kind of topics do I want to cover each month, and then each week, and each blog post, and how does that feed social media? So
Mm.
yeah, but for now I have posts all the way out through the end of October, so I have time.
Oh yeah. And you know what? And I think what you just touched on, that is the reason why I think people sometimes will shy away from posting in social media because they feel like I've got to have this plan, this really detailed plan.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe in the beginning, what if you just get used to showing up on a consistent regular basis, whatever that looks
Oh
like, if
yeah.
it's once a week, if it's every day, and you get people used to seeing you. they're not going to care that you don't have an established theme. They're just going to be thrilled to see you on a daily basis and learn something
Yes.
from you and interact with you. And then you get used to riding the bike, and then you figure out what trails do you want to go down. And because
Yes.
I'm the
That's
same
such a
way,
good point. Yeah.
because then it has us be kinder to ourselves and give ourselves
Yes.
grace and give ourselves
Yeah.
room, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, because like what I'm talking about, that is definitely advanced social media planning and
Yeah.
not necessary. A nice to have, but it is not make or break necessary to successful social media. And and I've been doing fairly extensive social media posting for years. And so, for to to kind of have that perspective of, if you're just getting started, like, yeah, you don't need that. You're right. You just show up once a week and post something, anything.
Hmm.
And that's where you start.
Hmm.
That's enough. And then you can build on it
Yeah. And you know what?
and
Even in the, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
just show up in one place. You don't have to
Exactly.
do all of them.
No,
Show up in
no,
one place once a week. Like that's a good goal.
don't do all of the things. Just do one of the things and then add
Yeah.
another one of the things and know which things you need to be attached to. And and it's interesting too, because I find that as for myself, as I post, now my brain is starting, like, I've gone a level down and I'm thinking, okay, so we're coming up on September. What is timely? And so I'm kind of mapping that out in my head, and then the next step is obviously to do that in a marketing calendar. But like that would be, kids are back to school, summer vacations are in the rear view mirror, adults are getting back into the swing of things.
Mm-hmm.
Some are looking ahead to the end of the year, but some are just like, oh God, I got to get used to not wearing flip-flops all the time or whatever. Or maybe they are
Yep.
until the cold weather hits. Um, but they've got to get back in the swing of things. Maybe they let their foot off the gas pedal a little bit over the summer. And it's
Yeah.
like, I have to get out of summer mode and back to work mode. And how do I do that? And
Yeah. Back to school and back to work.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people really take that mentality. Yeah. Yeah. Fall's a great time for networking. Like that's
it is.
definitely
It is.
people are ready for it.
Yeah, I've been hearing from a lot of people that their networking groups have been a little bit more sparse. Now, not things, say, like, I know you're in BNI, not like BNI where it's required that you
Oh,
come.
even then, even BNI definitely gets sparse in the summertime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you are allowed some absences, and so some people will,
Oh, that's
really kind
right.
of
Oh,
thank those absences for those summer vacations, and yeah, things definitely get sparse.
gotcha.
Yeah, across the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, yep. Are you ready
Yeah.
for some fall networking? Do you have a
Well,
plan?
I sort of feel like I want to get back. I want to get back into it. I've been buttoning things up in my business. Um, I actually yesterday in the virtual networkers chapter that I'm a member of, um, one of my goals was to update my your chat file, and you have, like when you post, like, yeah, you do your 30-second commercial and you pop your info into the chat. And
Hmm.
I thought, you know what? I got to be bold and brave. Like, my website has been live for a number of months now. And so I just, formatted the whole thing. Like, here's the link to my Facebook group. Here's LinkedIn. And so when we were going around doing announcements, I said, I never have an announcement, but doggone it, I have an announcement. And so I told the women, I said, my website has been live for a number of months now. And I said, but you know what? I said, here's the thing, full disclosure. I said, with what I do for a living, it's all about me having my client be in the spotlight. And I am there on the side of the stage left, going, oh, look at them being so bold and brave in the world. And, what do I need to do behind the scenes so they can stay in the spotlight in their zone of genius? And I said, but in order for people to know what I do, that I do that, I have to put myself out in the spotlight. So here I go.
Yeah.
And and I boom, and I put it in the chat file. And I said, if it feels light for you that you want to connect with me, if we're not connected, or if you want to join my Facebook group or follow me or whatever and interact, I said I would love that. Um, and so I'm thinking about what kind of networking do I want to do? And I know for sure I want to stick with virtual networking. I know that a lot
Mhm.
of people get a lot of value out of face-to-face networking, and I respect that. I know where I'm at in my life. I don't want to have to get in a car and drive to networking. I
Yeah.
love virtual networking, and I love wrapping up a meeting, refilling my teacup, and then going right back to work. I love
Yeah.
that, you
In
know?
person is definitely more time consuming.
It is because
Yeah.
it's like you got to like, get ready, and then it's like you're in the car, and then maybe and then you're like mingling before, and then you've got the meeting, and then you're mingling after, and then you got to come back, and if there's an accident on the road, you could lose half a day.
Oh
And
yeah.
so
Yeah. So
how do
you
you
got to make sure that you're getting your return on time investment for that kind of
exactly.
networking.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, but so I did that, and that felt really good and natural to do that in the group. So my other big goals this week, I'm about 77% done drafting my newsletter, so that'll go out in September with
Nice.
the back to work focus. Um, I tweaked my welcome message for when you sign up on my website. Um, I what else? Oh, I did a little presentation in a friend's face for a friend's Facebook group. She does Facebook lives every Thursday night. So I did that. And so that was another asset that I created for my business. I tweaked an original one, but it felt really joyful to put my branding colors in there. And I paid
Nice.
attention to how that felt. And I was like,
Good.
I do love that hunter green and the gold. Yes.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, thank you. And what else? Okay, so my I have to update my LinkedIn profile, and
Are
then
you going to do the video thing? I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard good things.
I've heard good things too. I will. I think right now it's just blinders on, update the doggone profile, get on to the get out there, because I feel like the little kid with the ball going, please play with me, and afraid to
Right.
play with these people, and they're like collegiates, and I'm like, Christy, just walk into the classroom, just stop it.
Yeah.
So update my profile, and then next week I'll start posting in earnest on LinkedIn. um,
Nice.
and then Oh, and and then I'm giving a presentation in my virtual networkers chapter that I'm a member of. That is mid-September, and that's all about organizing your desk. So, like, what's the
There you
psychology
go.
behind it? Um, what are some key tips so that you can create it and then maintain it? And then how do you personalize it? So, months ago, like back in the spring, I started collecting photos and snippets of ideas. So I'm going to start just putting all the ingredients into the pot this week and start drafting it. So I'm excited about that.
Nice.
Um, so like these are all the foundational things. And then I think and then it's been health stuff, just like taking care of like setting up appointments and um Zeus, he's probably going to have hip surgery because his right
Oh.
hip is luxated. It's meaning that it's popped out. But you'd never know
Oh.
it. You let him out back, and then, oh God, there's a bird in the yard. I must chase
Yeah.
after it. So yeah. So I think it's about, I'm looking ahead to the end of the year. And when the clock strikes midnight in 2023, says, "Hey, how you doing?" What do I want my business to look like, and how do I want it to be organized? And so I've been creating, like fine tuning my organizational system, which I think I told you before. So I've been
Hmm.
working on that. I've been having a lot of fun with that. Um,
Nice.
all right, awesome. Well, thank you for another amazing session. I always leave uplifted.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too. I look forward to this every month.
Me
So
too.
I'm thrilled, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you. And keep dialing in and listening to what comes up for you. And if you feel like, if you want to have a chat between now and then to kind of suss things out, I'm here for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. All right, girlfriend. Talk to you soon.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.